folks, welcome back to the Morocco channel. This is Talented Morocco Worldwide with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show, new guest, great topic we're going to talk about. And of course, the Morocco channel is the first Moroccan channel for the Moroccans of the world and anyone who has interest in Morocco to highlight Moroccans and their talent, and they are all over the world and they contribute everywhere. And we'd like to bring that and also to bring you in Morocco a closer look at, things that you might or might not know how things work around the world. Also, this is an English version only kind of channel primarily. I mean, we might have some people and we'll translate, but this is predominantly to introduce English as a language of media in Morocco, and it's live literally from the area of New York City, Jersey, so the metropolitan area of New York. So again, from the source of a secondary source of English, if you want to call it that way. Anyways, without any further ado, I have with me Touria Ettamri, and Touria, she is a Moroccan and American, and she's been in the States for a period of time. And we're going to talk about her story and what she does. And she's going to bring us some real nuggets and insights about her industry. And I do have some background in her industry, so we're going to have a nice talk about it. But anyway, so Touria, welcome to our show today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Well, listen, you and I, we met at an event and we've connected, and I feel that your talent is definitely needs to be highlighted, and definitely so you have a lot of stuff to share with people in general, but specifically our Moroccan, I guess compadres, our
Yes.
Moroccans of the world. And you have also been in the States for a period of time, and as always, I always ask like to get us started with your story, how you got to the States, and how that transition was, and what advice can we give people who have an intention to potentially come to the States or anywhere around the world. And then we'll go into your current occupation and how that whole world works.
Yes.
All yours, Tori.
All right. So I actually came here May 2001. It was shortly before 9/11. So it was
Tough
I
time.
got to experience the before and after America. But when I had just finished my second year of college, when I got accepted to Metro State in Colorado. So I came straight to Colorado, started studying there. It wasn't an easy adjustment. Thankfully, I did have some family friends that lived there, hence why I chose Colorado, who were able to help me integrate a little bit, find connections, and so forth. So I think that's very important for us to go where there is somebody that could give us some direction. And kind of facilitate the connection, I think. And I'll talk about this while I'm talking about myself, just because I see this every day in my line of business. I think it's very important for Moroccans that are coming to secure lodging and secure connections before coming, and not just think that they're going to be able to make it right off the bat, especially with all the challenges. Regardless, I started at Metro State, and then from there to UCD. I worked at a restaurant while doing all of this. I worked the evening shift, so it was very challenging. But we made it work. I found a girl that was also here by herself, so we connected. We lived together, and then I just found a wonderful community in Colorado, Syrian and Turkish community that literally took me like I was their own. They treated me like a daughter, like a sister. And I think that the challenge was huge, but that made my life easier, just knowing that I have a community to back me up. Unfortunately, there wasn't a big Moroccan community in Colorado when I came. There were a few, which, did everything they could to help each other. But the community was really, really small, so it wasn't much, to rely on. And then in 2012, I met my now husband and moved to New Jersey, and I made a life here. After college, I worked at I worked in sales, in credit card processing. I mainly had, I think it was fortunate for me that I was able to speak French and Arabic. So I took hold of the Canada market um, in my company. It was a huge market in there. So they really needed somebody that I think the Arabic helped as well because a lot of the vendors and a lot of the merchants over there spoke Arabic. So for me, it was just seamless. I was able to take that entire market and then they added the East Coast to it. So I became the VP of sales for Eastern US and Canada. And at some point it was all of Canada and Eastern US. So it was a huge opportunity for me. And I think the language skills is what opened it up. Obviously, you have to have the people skills, you have to have the sales endurance and know-how, but I think the language is what really did it for me. I did that for quite a bit until I came here to New Jersey. I continued that for a little bit, but then having kids, it's, you just have to choose your priorities as a woman. Am I really going to nail down my career and go after that? Or am I going to give the kids, more time, stay at home, take care of them? So my husband and I made the choice for me to stay home at that time and just take care of the kids. In the meantime, I'm not the person to just sit and do nothing. So I took on a new challenge. I learned baking. I started to do cakes, fondant cakes. I still have my Instagram page named after my firstborn, Jenna's Cakes. So it was a really good thing to do while I'm sitting at home watching kids. It just gave me an outlet to be artistic, to be creative, to bring in some money. I started with making small smash cakes to making 5 tier, 6 tier, 7 tier wedding cakes that demanded a lot of time, a lot of work, and cost a lot of money. So I think I just made the best out of it at the time, just getting my me time doing creative things. After that, I opened a restaurant. In the meantime, I started to do real estate on the commercial side for the franchisors, just helping finding locations, negotiating with landlords, etc. And that's just really what caught me into real estate. I opened the restaurant at the wrong time. It was COVID. It was we opened in October. COVID hit in March, so it was very challenging. Not to give that experience up for anything because I learned so much. It was costly, it was challenging, but the knowledge that you gain from going through that process is immense. So I don't regret it at all. We continued on through, I think August 2021 is when we closed, and that's when I think January 2021 is when I really laser focused on real estate and started to take in residential as well. And it's just real estate is just such a good combiner of many things. You have to have skills, people skills, you have to have customer service skills, sales skills, and you just have to be that emotional support because this is an emotional decision for most people. Yet it's one of the biggest financial decisions they're going to make in their life. So you just have to be that balance between the two. And I think that's where I found my niche. That's where I feel like I wake up every day feeling like I make a difference in people's lives. And here we are. That's what I'm doing now.
Well, that's a 22 years, 20 plus years of history in less than 15 minutes. So,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of stuff in there. So let me break it down a little bit because there's so much stuff that you've covered in that, in these short minutes here. And I think a lot of people, can benefit from the things that you stated there, and we can, expand on a few of them. One, you came to the States and you were in college. the university, whatever they refer to as college in Morocco. For some people, may
Yeah.
they may think you're still in mid school. So college obviously is the university level, the associate degree, or like the first 2 years, or premier cycle as we call it in premier cycle, deuxième cycle. That depends. So, anyways, for the Moroccans, that was just to clarify. But for anybody else, we know what college is, but here's the thing. So that was a transition, right? You went from Moroccan
Yeah.
education into the States. Now the good news is you came into an education system, so that was a great thing, because you did talk about when people come in here, they have to have I guess plans to know where they're going, to have some get some host family or some friends somewhere where they don't have to struggle that first transition. And in your case, I mean, you come to college. I mean, same thing with me. I came in to work in Disney, so I had all that stuff pre-done for me in a way. A
Mhm.
lot easier, but not everybody has it that easy. And even for you, when you go to college, you have to, it's not like, it's a job where they're going to set you up. You got to figure these things on your own. So a
Right.
lot of people need to understand, if you're planning, if you're not coming in, even sometimes when you come with a job, you might get a job, but they don't give you everything else. Now, again, very few opportunities give you the lodging and the transportation to get in and stuff, and give you that first start. But it changes from one person. A lot of people come to the States through lottery, and that still
Yeah.
exists every year. You can actually, anyone from Morocco, you can apply still. Morocco is one of the countries that are benefiting from the DV lottery annually, and so
Mhm.
you can do that. But if you did that, you have to plan correctly. So let's make sure we have that, in play. Now, unfortunately, you came in probably one of the worst historic moments of the states. Probably one of the biggest tragedies since Pearl Harbor, which was 9/11. And again, being of Arabic, Islamic, faith, that's always a challenge. And again, for people that are new to the states, from Morocco, from anywhere in the world, they might not feel the same brunt that we had then. Although today, I mean, there's some stuff that's going on around the world that you can still feel some animosity, and some
Yeah.
things that can, depend because of your name, because of, where you belong and your heritage and these things. So without going political, but it is almost happening again now, but it's a
Yeah.
little different angle, because it's not really, it's just a partial, event, if you want to call it, where people are still being,
Correct.
you know, uh, in between decisions on where the likes, are going to be, whether they like one party versus the other. So it's happening. And I'm referring to what's going on in the Middle East right now. But
Yeah.
but 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 in 9/11, it was just a big blunt, tragedy that everybody, kind of suffered from. And of course, the first community that suffered through it was anybody with a Muslim or Arabic name. you know,
Yeah.
they they were there. Now you came in here. I'm sure that transition was difficult. And now you
Mhm.
also were not in the East Coast or New York area or stuff. You were in Colorado, which is a whole different, dynamics. As you get deeper in the states, things are different from we actually in the big hubs like the Boston
Yeah.
area, the Washington, the New York, anywhere where there's a lot of diversity and metropolitan, like melting pots type of locations. It's a little bit more acceptable. You can mix it a little bit easier. But if you're in other states, you basically like stand out like a sore thumb. There's only
Exactly.
a few, and so people look at you, and depends on where they stand in the position at that time. Everybody was pro U.S. We stand united and stuff, and everybody else. We became part of, like, you belong to this enemy. Folks, and although you have nothing to do with it, but it was a difficult task, and so. I mean, I know it was not easy, but you made it through. So again, we hope that no one has to experience that. But I actually,
Yeah.
I was in the States when that happened, and I can tell you, it was not an easy, days. I mean, it went on for a couple of years.
Yeah. I
Very
mean,
difficult.
the day that it happened, if I can share the story,
Please,
the
yes.
day that it happened, as you know, Colorado is a couple hours behind.
Mhm.
So I woke up, I got to class. I didn't have any idea. I didn't turn on the news at the time. It wasn't phone accessible where you could check Twitter or whatever and find out what's going on in the world. So I get into class, and the teacher plays a clip letting us know what happened that day. It was a political science class,
Ooh.
and he he played a video of people cheering in the street because that happened. And supposedly he's saying, oh, look, this is what the Middle East is doing. They're cheering on because we are being attacked. And I had a student sitting behind me. Well, the teacher asked the question, if I get an opportunity to go to where these people are, what would I do? And the student sitting behind me literally said, if I had an opportunity to go to the Middle East, I would kill, kill, kill. And I remember I just turned around and I'm thinking, do I even want to say who I am? Do I even want to respond to these kind of, do I want to share with the class who I am, where I come from? Um, I think there was a Palestinian student in the classroom with me, and just feeling that tension, he came and sat in the table right next to me, and then we had to go to the teacher and talk to him after, just letting him know how we feel about the type of videos and questions that he was sharing. But it was, at the time, everybody was just so angry. It's just, you just better have not answered any questions, not commented on anything, just keep your mouth shut and make it through the day.
Yeah, but thank you for sharing that, because that's actually that is a very tough, experience. I mean, I remember the same thing. I mean, I turned the TV on, and my partner at the time. It's funny because we owned a real estate school at the time, and so
Yeah.
he calls me, and we, he says, look at the TV. So I'm looking at the event. I see the first plane, and then as you watch that first, think you see the second hit, and that's it. I mean, your face just drops because
Yeah.
this is going to be rough, and then you go in the streets. It was, by the way, I lived on Staten Island. So at that 3 days we were on lockdown. Staten Island was, there were supposedly reports of some people that looked like
Wow.
they were, part of this plot. And so they closed the island, can go anywhere. It was just the weirdest thing, I mean, experience. And I mean, there was a lot of hate, a lot of backlash, and it didn't help to see some of these scenes on TV that the media highlighted, royally to even incite more of
Yeah.
that. And again, it was a sad place, but frankly, folks, let's hope that this doesn't repeat itself, and hopefully that people have gotten more educated on what it is and how people are, and uh, you can't judge one big group because of an action of someone or a couple of people, and that's just that. But so thank you for sharing that transition, but because that's like a very difficult moment for someone to come in, and most people come in between these big events, and there's nothing. You come in, there's a war going on, also even immigration becomes very difficult, and the process becomes difficult, and the actual investigative stuff, where they do the background checks, everything becomes more difficult when you have
Mhm.
serious event like that. So, and by the way, a lot of people did not even get renewed their visas, for as a student
Yeah.
after that. That was another thing that happened right there. People could not get their visas, renewed, and a lot of students had to leave. Depends what country. So it was just very tragic. So thank you for sharing that. At least we're bringing some history moment here, but you happen to live that moment as you transited to the States. But this happens around the world. You can go to any other country where there's some conflict going, and then
Of
your
course.
life becomes, I mean, in the Ukraine, for example, when the war began, a lot of students, Moroccan students, are in Ukraine, and a lot of people had to leave also. It was a difficult task for them, and this is more recent events. And these things always happen around the world. And so when you decide to go a different country, sometimes you have to see whether there's the right time or another right time. But sometimes you have no choice. You could
Yeah.
not possibly have imagined it. You came in a couple of months before, and boom, and it happened. It's just that. I mean, believe it or not. So in before 9/11 happened, we had just started the American Arab Association of New York. It was literally a few months before. And
Okay.
as it happened, which is still active now, as it happened, it was a few of us that started. There was a doctor, Palestinian. There was a Palestinian lady, Lebanese, another Palestinian, my partner, and myself. And we started it. And then when we did, it happened about 6 months before. So we were literally participating in a lot of the mitigation and things like that, working with
Mhm.
NYPD at the time with the elected officials, doing visuals, doing stuff to try to, educate and get people more like tighter. But it was a very difficult time, and I can tell you, a lot of people got together to make it, to try to make it as, but it was really lingering. So, anyways, that's not what we're here today about. But so now it's not, no, now you lived in Colorado, as you said, the
Yeah,
community was very limited. So that's the other thing. Being in an area where there is no community, sometimes is for you, sometimes is against you. It makes it a lot easier to transit into a community, but that can make you also lazy. And let me say that, because when you come into a community where your language is is there, your I guess everything is easy, you can find a job, here and there, that you can make things. Sometimes it makes you so comfortable that you don't do more. You just,
right,
you stay in that, that pot, and you get stuck in that circle. In your case, you finished your school and you got a career path, which by the way, I mean, credit card companies are huge. They're still hard. They will always be. And you found a way, and by the way, you're talking about credit card processing,
yeah,
which by the way, I have a pet beef with that today, because not with the credit card companies, but with the businesses that are taking advantage of it. And I'm referring to, now they've always charged fees for any business. If you had a business, you had a credit card terminal, there were fees for transactions. But
right,
all of a sudden, after COVID, those transactions have become, the consumers, burden now. Everybody has to pay those if you pay with credit card versus if you pay with cash. And it's that's a whole different topic. We can
yeah,
that's my rant.
yeah. That's merchants passing it on to consumers because it became too much at some point.
Well,
Yeah,
I think the rate is the same. I don't think that changed much, but really, it's just this just got savvier. So why do I have to pay it? But I would also say this: what happened to business expense? I mean, plus it's not like they didn't increase the prices, right? I mean, everything increased. So
yeah, yeah,
you have to give in once. So again, restaurants people out there, I mean, this is not new. I mean, it's always been there. Anybody that had a business and used a credit card terminal had to pay fees. You were processing those.
yeah,
You run the department that did that, and this is for years. And so COVID happened only 3 years ago. So this whole thing where we have to pay for them is really just an asset that these businesses, merchants, as you said, taking advantage
yeah,
of it, just moving it to the consumer, but it's adding more on the consumers. And I can guarantee you, folks, if you're watching, if you own a business right now, you probably have less frequency or less redundancy, of one family member to come to you because they might not want to pay those extra fees as much as they did, they didn't before. So again, I'm just saying, but that's my personal view on what that looks like, since we talked about credit cards. Now in Morocco, it's still the same, I think, right? The
yeah.
are still there, and there's a transaction for that.
And it's not everywhere. I noticed it more in the East Coast is where it's passed on to consumers, whether it be gas stations. When I first came to New Jersey and I was in the credit card processing industry, and I had never seen that before in 2012. Um, Seeing that in certain states it was illegal to do that, to charge two different prices.
Well, I think it is. I mean, listen, I mean, it's the cost of doing business. I mean, you have to
Yeah,
have credit. If you want to take credit cards, you're going to have to pay for them. And
correct.
I mean, if you have PayPal, you pay for it, right?
Yeah,
Similarly, it's a transaction. Now, by you putting that on the credit card, on the receipt, for someone else to pay for it, yet you're actually charging, the price, of your goods and services and order meals,
right.
whatever. It's already, I mean, you went, and here's the thing. I mean, and this is just specifically for the restaurants. I noticed that the meals have gone, the portions are smaller and the prices are higher and more fees. And you got all these extra charges now that you get from everywhere, and everybody's trying to make up for the losses in during the pandemic. But frankly, folks, you gotta do something about this.
Yeah,
As a
it's
consumer, it doesn't make sense.
yeah, having been in every side of this, I was a restaurant owner, I was in credit card processing, and I am a consumer. I can tell you that it just from every side that you look at it, you can find justification.
Of course, I
The
get it.
Yeah, the cost of doing business for restaurants, especially. I mean, I'm not talking about the other businesses, but restaurants, especially, is immense from labor to cost of goods to it has become unbearable. And I think at some point restaurants are going to be just a commodity at some point because it just seems like it's not sustainable. It's not going to be sustainable in the future at all.
Well, again, especially if you're right. I mean, everything is expensive, and more people, and even the quality of the food. I mean, whether
Yeah,
it's healthy. I mean, there's more sodium, more stuff. Some people will prefer now to save money and just eat home, and there's all kind of discussion. But you're right. It is a difficult business.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. I mean, we love our restaurants overall. I mean, we do get enjoy, a little meal with the family. You want to get out. You're tired sometimes from eating home, so it has a flavor. It makes sense. But you're right. If the cost is, and everything is about cost, and you have the best experience because you were literally as a consumer, you own the restaurant, and you were on the credit card, so you know it from different angles. And
Yeah, and
you said it perfectly.
yeah, I mean, it's funny because you had some clients that would say, or some customers that would say, do you guys use plastic stuff? Because I won't support a restaurant. They use plastic stuff. But they don't understand that switching completely to recyclables is very expensive. Just the price of straws is going to go from 5 cents a straw to maybe about 18 cents a straw. Just a simple thing that, and here are consumers that are now environmentally friendly, which I do support wholeheartedly, but they are going to penalize a restaurant for something, but then they don't want to contribute to the cost of that thing. So it just becomes kind of like a two-sided thing, which, it's very interesting.
Well, thank you for our Moroccan audiences. Just to be clear, because I'm not sure how close are we in Morocco compared to the States when it comes to this eco-friendly kind of things. I mean, here there's like paper straws. Although there have been studies to show that these are not as the safest as they thought. We have the paper bags, we have the different things. So there's this whole thing where you want to be eco-friendly kind of restaurants where you don't use bad things or use recyclable stuff that is natural ingredients or whatever, not made from natural products or recyclable products, so this way you can save the planet kind of concept, which what we do want to save our planet. We live in here, it's our home. But so just to clarify for our Moroccans, I mean, if because we still use, I tell you one thing, in Morocco I've seen this, they give you coffee cups on these what do you call them, the rest areas, in a plastic cup. I mean, I've never seen coffee in a plastic cup, but I've seen
Yeah.
it in some of those areas, which is, I was like, what? Why would you give a plastic cup for a hot drink? I mean, the plastic will just melt to the top, and it did. So stuff like that. I mean, again, for our people in charge, if they're listening to this show, maybe you want to take a look at that. I mean, there are cups specifically for coffee that, and again, I think it's that what you just said, it's the cost.
Yeah.
Everybody is worried about the cost. Everybody wants to cut a cost because they expected to get more if they did that. But there is a balance that you have to find. I mean, you're right. If there is a cost that goes up if you do the right stuff, and sometimes if the quality, I mean, there's always that balance between quality and quantity, between the price and the quality. Do I sacrifice one versus the other? Which one? But sometimes you can find a good medium, play where you can actually do them both. Right prices, right stuff, depends on what you deliver, what your service is. But sometimes 1 cent or 2 cent, can make a difference. But really, that's not a lot to put into the consumer. But again, that's the thing. It's subjective because it can go from a couple cents to a few dollars, and then that adds up.
Yeah.
Again, but so now that takes me to your experience about starting a business, because so you have a dual experience in life. And the reason I want to say this is because you work in the corporate and you went up the ladder, and actually that's banking and finances and credit card processing. It touches on a lot of money, and there's
Mhm.
money to be made there. So and also it's the corporate ladder. So we'd like you to share with us that experience. How was it? How easy was it for you to actually climb the ladder? Especially, we hear the stories about women versus men in terms of the corporate. So maybe you can share that with our audiences. And then the other one is then you went to in an entrepreneurial space where you wanted to be your own boss and run your own stuff. And I mean, we're going to talk about the timing and that, but let's share about that for people that are coming, or people around the world that decide to go into the corporate. From your experience, how that experience was, and then if they decide to become entrepreneurs, what would you tell them to do or not to do? As your experience personally.
So, from a corporate perspective and climbing the ladder, I think hard work and dedication is the key. That's number one. Number two
Agreed.
is you have to have the people skills. I know that a lot of people think that this only exists in Morocco, that it depends on who you know. That's going to dictate how far you make it, but it also exists in the corporate world. You have to be savvy, you have to cater to how do I say this? You have to know how to treat people, especially people that are in high places. They won't see you. They're not gonna go out there and look for you and see your work, no matter how good you are. You have to make sure that they see you. And the way you do it is by networking, building connections, volunteering, finding out what they need and getting it done, even if it's not your business, even if it's not your job. And I know a lot of people will say, I'm not getting paid for that, but you will. In the long term, you will get paid for that. Because when they start to think about putting the right people in the right places, they're going to rely on their interactions and who they know, not somebody who maybe is doing a great job, but they really don't know who that person is. So, my biggest thing was getting to know who the key people are in the company and figuring out how I can help them, even if that means I have to do extra work that is not my job. Making presentations. When I wanted to take over the VP of sales for Canada and the Eastern US, there were people that were presented for that job that had nothing to do with speaking French. They probably are going to have to hire people that would translate for them to do the job. I made a presentation to the key people in the company, explaining to them and doing this. I remember I did a slideshow with why you should pick me, why I should be the person in this position. And in every slideshow, I kept reintroducing that I speak the language, I know the business, and you're pretty much just going to hire somebody that's going to hire me to do the job. So eliminate that middleman between me and you. So I think the key thing is just knowing where you want to be and just going after it. Put yourself out there. Um, Make cakes for the boss's daughter's birthday. That's okay. As a woman, I can do that. Maybe a man would feel awkward doing something like that, but utilize your gender in the things that you do best. When there is a company party, volunteer to make a side dish that everybody will enjoy, because then everybody's going to ask who made this, and then they're going to know who that person is, start a conversation with you, and then know who you really are and what you can bring to the company. So I really did use every aspect of it to be able to get to where I need to get.
Well, so hold that thought. So you're touching on very powerful things, and folks, here's the thing. You said it best. Like in Morocco, it's who you know, right? But that's everywhere, folks. Even in the corporate world, it's not necessarily who you know. That means somebody knows you. They just gonna give you the freebie. That may happen in Morocco, but not here. But the difference is they gotta like you. That gives you a bonus. That gives you a different, a little bit more cushion and an opportunity, if you want to call that. You still have to do the work. You still have to be equally balanced to get the job done. They're not going to give you the job because they like you and you suck at what you do. They're going to give it to you if they like you, but they know you're also capable. But there's other capable people equally to you. You just want to be different. And by the way, that is the differentiator between, someone who highlights themselves in anything in life. There's thousands of us or millions of us that do exactly the same work. What makes one versus the other better is how you highlight yourself. And you said key points, volunteer, do more. And by the way, I can relate to you. So in my career, I mean, in 30 years, I've been in the insurance space, and my first job in the insurance, literally, it was my first day. And there was an event. They called me to the event. And the president of the company was there that day. And I got lucky because she happened to be working in Morocco for years back. She was volunteering, in a particular program in Morocco. So she kind of related to. She loved the Moroccan culture, but she didn't know I was Moroccan at the time. So I was just actually working, and I was like, this is my first, and that's always me. When I was in Disney, I was really happening, right, and making things happen. And same concept. So I'm walking the crowds, talking to people, engaging and stuff. She noticed that, and that's her job. Like, she was a very active CEO, so she was really looking at who are and the company at the time was we were like small company, and then we grew obviously over the years. But in that moment, I got her to literally call upon me in less than a week. in a meeting, and she made mention of me because she noticed that. And then from that point on, she had me on her basically eyesight as I was
Yeah.
doing the work, and I was, and that, you said something also powerful. We have an advantage, folks. If you're Moroccans of the world, well, we have a lucky streak, which is we all kind of speak multiple languages. And I have to tell you exactly what happened to you, Touria. It happened to me. The reason I was hired is because I spoke Arabic and Spanish. I was able to be hired for this particular role. The languages were the reason I was in. The
Yeah.
languages were the reason you were given that role. And so it makes sense. A lot of us in Morocco now, the reason we're doing this show in English is not our priority languages in the country. And so therefore we created this opportunity so people can start getting more accustomed to it. Shows in English, and we're going to do a lot more programming to just bring this to the youth, and so the next generation can be comfortable with English and English, Moroccans, and English in general as a communication skills, language across the world. But I can tell you that's exactly what happened. Eventually, they needed a retention team, so they needed someone that was multiple, languages. They
Mhm.
gave me the role, and then from there, I grew up. And same thing like you, I was doing a lot more. I worked more hours. I spent more time. And by the way, in Morocco, we probably call this kiss ass, and I'm sorry about
Yeah.
the French here, but it's not kiss ass. That's your career path you work in. You're not asking for freebies, but you have to highlight yourself. I can give you an example.
Right.
I was one of 10 people that did exactly the same job that were there in a community. So I was in a community that was predominantly Spanish. Everybody around me that was working there was Latino, and therefore they had better chances in the hospital systems that we were working in. And in order for me to make a difference, I had to do more than them. I had to put more hours.
Mhm.
I had to literally do a lot more, action, and be doing different things from them and legitimate legal things. So, an example, they all have cousins working in that hospital that I was working at. And this was in Brooklyn. And so I had to find new allies within the hospital. I had to find new clinics and areas where I can do stuff. I had to do more. So they used to come in at night between 9 to 5. I used to come from between 7 to 7. I worked 3 more hours, 4 hours a day extra just to make, my numbers higher. So eventually in sales, you can show yourself in the ranking. So, but that's what you did, Turia. You made yourself available. You made yourself very visible to the powers that be. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. People
Yeah.
like, again, as a leader, you as a VP, me as also being in a VP role, we look for those identifiers for key people in the team. Who are your players? Like, again, if you play football, soccer, whatever, you scout those people. You got to scout the best players, right? You're not going to scout, you're not going to take everybody that you watch. I mean, we have that in college football here and even in Moroccan football, right? So you got these
Yeah.
coaches, they go and they check the players. There's everybody plays football and soccer in Morocco, right? But everybody gets selected for the national team. Same concept. You want to pick the best of the best. But the best of the best have to be doing something better. I mean, I was watching a movie, it just came out, Gran Turismo. It's an actual.
Okay.
Well, if you watch this movie, I'm going to be using it for training purposes and leadership and skill sets and teamwork and all the stuff because there's got a lot of stuff in it. But if you look at that, there's thousands of people and you got to have to pick some of the best. But those best have to show themselves as
Right.
better than most of the others. And that's all there is. Some people say, well, I don't want to do that. Well, then you're going to stay where you are. So if you
Yeah.
really want to make a difference, you're going to be the difference. You got to be
Yeah.
that one.
And I think as Moroccans, we have a huge advantage. In addition to the language skills, we are all people.
That's right.
We like to interact. We like to cook. We like to gather and gather around
Fun.
meals. And I think we need to use that to our advantage. And just like you said, highlighting where we're from. And everybody's so curious these days and back then to know more about Morocco and about a different culture. And listen, this works in everybody's advantage. We work as ambassadors to our homeland. And at the same time, we use that to open a door with a lot of Americans because Americans are very open to other cultures. They want to learn, they want to know, how do you make this food, how does this, and I think that's a great conversation and relationship starter. I think food has played such a role in my life where literally all of the VPs that I was fortunate to have. The senior team was 80% women in the company that I was in. So it was just really fantastic to connect with all of these people and use my background, where I come from, as a key component in connecting with them. They were so fascinated by everything Moroccan, and I took joy and pride in showing them what that is. And at the same time, it put me on their roadmap when they're looking back to see who can do the job better. Obviously, I had to prove myself in doing the job, but at the same time, it put me at a, like you said, it highlighted me, because then they go back and they say, well, we know her, we don't know who that other person is.
Thank you. By the way, so that there's a, I love what you said that the 80% of the, the top, echelon of the company was women, and so there is a, especially for our Moroccans listening to this, this is a quick message, because I know historically we've heard, like, for a woman, for example, in Morocco, to make it to the top, she has to sacrifice, a lot of things and do things that may not be acceptable, right? We have this, at least I've heard this, over and over. We've seen it depicted in some Moroccan movies. You don't have to do that stuff, in the world. You just have to do your job and be who you are, be genuine. You don't have to accept, anything that is, illicit, that is not appropriate, and whatever.
Of
You
course.
just got to do your work. But I love what you said, because someone may listen. Well, you probably make it because there's a bunch of guys out there that like you and stuff. That's not the case here, folks. So let's understand. And actually, as I said, the CEO was a woman. I've reported to more women than men personally.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have no problem with that. They're just great, leaders, and if they're great leaders, that's what you want. And it's that chemistry, is that, it's not because they like me or because I was one versus the other. It's about the work you do and your personality. And I love what you said. We are people. We
Yeah.
love to socialize. I mean, you get into a bunch of Moroccans in a room and we have a party. I mean, that's just what it is, right? It always happens, and we have to help each other. We have to support each other, as opposed to hate each other or not support each other. I mean, the idea is that we can do more together. I love what you said also, Taria, about, yes, the American people are, open. They enjoy cultures. Even if they don't know, they're curious and they want to learn. Now, despite everything that we talked about, the tragedy of 9/11, things like that, they still are always open to listen. If you talk to
Oh,
them,
yeah.
they'll listen. They'll give you. Now, if they don't, that's okay. There's plenty, but that's not the overall, the majority. They're very
Yeah.
decent people who want to discover, who want to learn. They don't know.
Agree.
Sometimes it's just a big country and they get busy, and sometimes they don't know cultures. And when they meet a culture, they get really intrigued. And we can do that. And by the way, we have also another advantage. You talk to any American, say, we're the first nation that recognizes the United States of America. Oh, really? And you can start right there. I mean, you have something to work, for us here. But this is also across the globe, not, I mean, anywhere in the world. If you have Moroccans, I mean, listen, I can say we have some elements of the Moroccan, community around the world that may not give us the best picture, but we have the other majority of Moroccans that do give us the best picture in the world. I mean, look, we just had a great World Cup. Now we're going to host one. So our teams are doing a great, terrific job every day. They're conquering different sports and stuff. And we have this whole platform. The idea of the Morocco channel is to create an opportunity to highlight, talent around the world. And talent varies in scale, but we have a lot of people that are doing great things, around the world that nobody knows about. And I mean, yes, we have Moroccan televisions, but that's okay. They highlight the actual stars, the people that made it to the spotlight. But there's a lot of people that are not on the spotlight, but yet they're doing contributions around the world. And maybe we can give an opportunity for those folks to be there. But the idea is we have talent everywhere, we have abilities, and we can do and deliver. So Taria, now was thank you, by the way, about that whole thing about
Yeah.
the corporate piece, because that's important. But then now you decided and you to make a sacrifice. And let me say this, because as a mother, you have decisions to make about children. Now, some people say, well, did you succumb to your husband and he decided? Because, and again, I'm just addressing some of the
Yeah.
mentality that may be out there, like, watching the show, and they may say, like, well, yeah, you gave up your career because you wanted to follow a man or decision of man. It's not the case, folks. At least not in my world. Decisions are made together. My wife and I, we're a team. We do a lot of things together and we do balance things. And yes, you made the choice to stay home for your kids, because I think that's an important piece. I personally believe that is a beautiful thing, and that sacrifice is not unnoticed and not bad, because your kids are going to have your attention and they're going to grow up in the proper way and they get the right foundation. And you did that as a collective decision. That's
Yeah.
actually a modern concept. that we think of, but it's been in existence forever. I mean, we can go back to the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and he, was the best lead of a family, head of household. He worked with his family; they worked as a unit and stuff like that. So we can't even deny that this is new, or it's a cultural thing. We have this all along. But you've done that opportunity where you created this particular environment where you stopped your career in a way because you wanted to do something that is noble and really which is taking care of your family. So again, can you share with us that with with our audiences, because for the women out there and the men out there, if this is a question mark that you might have, like, oh my god, do we go to career, how do I do it? I mean, there are choices to be made, right? You made the one that made sense for you and your family. So was
Yeah.
that a difficult choice, or was it an easy
No,
decision?
actually, it wasn't. I think at the end of the day, you have to figure out where your priorities are. I think once you decide that you want to have a family, you want to raise a family, you want to have kids, you have to start prioritizing. And when my husband and I sat down and we talked about this, we realized our priority is going to be the kids. And for me to, and I'm not saying that this is wrong or judging anybody that does this, but for me to have a newborn in a daycare 9 hours a day, it just, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I was fortunate enough that my husband is able to be the support for our family financially, and that I'm able to do this, because let's recognize that not a lot of couples can do this. Maybe financially they're not able to. We were able to do it, alhamdulillah. We decided that I would do more in the household, giving up my career, because I am not the person that is bound to one career. I can find other things to do from home, and just having that ability, the decision was made that I would be the one to stay home to do this. So I don't think it was hard. I think once you think about the children and their future and how much you can contribute, especially in those first 5 years of their lives. We had two girls, Jannah and Sarah, and both of them, I didn't go back to work until, or started my restaurant until they were already in kindergarten, both. So, well, one was in kindergarten, the other one was in first grade. So it worked out. Um, I think you just have to sit down, talk, and figure out what your priorities are. It's going to make the decision easier once you figure that out.
Thank you, because that, and by the way, you really summarize it well, because to your point, it's a sit down. You know, if one of the parties in the couple can sustain the financial burden, I mean, it's easier to do it that way. You have other skills that you were able to still run from home things and supplement, and you were able to make that decision based on financial sense, and also, like, the human part of it, because you wanted to raise your kids at least that's a period of where the kids needs their real upbringing correctly, because if not, they'll be in daycares and stuff. It's not the same as if you were to take care of them the proper way until you put them into the school system and then you maintain, and you were able to do that. So again, because sometimes that's a question, like, oh my god, once you get married, your career goes, or or like your husband, and then again, this I'm talking because I know our culture and we have some of these things. By the way, it happens in other cultures, but it's not necessarily that. I mean, it's a matter of making decisions. This is happening right in Moroccan households, not even the households that are Moroccans in other places in the world. Even in Moroccan households, people are making those decisions to see. Now, the world is tougher. We talked about finances and expenses. It's getting tough financially on people, and sometimes you need to have three jobs each to actually make ends. But sometimes you have to also make those decisions where they're sacrifices, but they're good sacrifices because they make sense. As long as it's a mutual decision, that's it. I mean, and that's really important. So thank you for sharing that part. And again, hopefully we give some advice to our young folks that are just about to get, because sometimes that be like, well, what do I do? Is this going to help our relationship? Blah blah blah. I can't give up my career. No one's going to give up their career. I mean, I know today, if you wanted to go back, you can rebuild your career at any given time. You already have the time. You already have the ranking. It's like riding a bike. You can go back into any industry and be able to do this. And that's the other thing. When you have skills, those skills are with you at all times.
Yeah.
You can switch them. Like, again, I've done a lot of things similar. I mean, I've literally, you and I have similar paths in a way, because I've done exactly, I've leadership in sales and so on and so forth, and in different industry, but similarly, you're in real estate. I've been in real estate as well. So we, and decisions are always made about certain things that you have to do with your significant other, your spouse, and it's always an important piece. And your kids have to have some level. And again, if you want kids, now if you don't want kids, that's okay, because we hear
Right.
this a lot in our culture in the States, for example. All kids are later. My career is everything right now, and some families, they don't have kids until they're like way older in their age. Now, that's a decision they make, but I can tell you, I've heard stories about like how it's not the same, at a later age. Well, as you get older, things are not the same. Your physical aspect is different. Your stamina is different. Kids need a lot of energy, and you're not going to have that energy. So again, these are decisions, folks. We're not talking about family, social gathering today, or social, upbringing, but it's just an idea of a business perspective from an actual Moroccan who actually had a career path, who made the decisions to stay home for a period for kids. And again, so that is a great choice. There's nothing wrong with it. It made sense for you, and it may not make sense for other people. But again, if you're out there listening, this could be something to just consider as an option when you get to that point. Now, Touria, you went to the business. That's the other part. What are some of the what made you think restaurant specifically? Was this a Moroccan restaurant, or was it like just a regular restaurant?
No, this was a franchise.
Oh,
So this was kind of this was kind of a weird path, but I mean, I did have a restaurant background. As I had mentioned, I worked in the restaurant when I was in college. So when we started to think about a business at the time, the franchise just made so much sense. Let's get into something structured, something that there's other people that are also working alongside you to make the decisions of what's the best financial solution for cost of goods, for this, for that. So we picked that. The other aspect of it was, let's think about something that represents us. So we wanted to do a halal restaurant. So halal and franchise, there weren't a lot of choices. At the time, there was a new franchise that had just started. It was called Burger I Am.
oh
So
my goodness! No, hold on.
yeah,
Don't
yeah,
tell me you got one of those. You and I
yeah,
got. So that's, yeah. I we lost money on that one too. We started exactly the same thing in about
yeah.
2019, 2018, and it didn't work. So
Same, 2018.
uh,
Yeah, that's when we started too. And we actually went as far as opening and to be honest with you, the concept was fantastic. I
the
think
guy left home and took the money
the
and left
guy
too.
abandoned ship and then things just started to fall apart. At that point, everybody started to do their own thing. So it lost the franchise touch. We were no longer a collective power, which is why it became weak. Now, the other part of it, the other section of it was that we as franchisees, we were penalized by community members because we chose Burger I Am. Now, at the time, our train of thought was, let's just find something that offers a halal option. This was it. There was nothing else. This was it. But for a lot of community members, they called this a treason because the owner of the company is Jewish or is from Israel. Now, for me, that was besides the point. For me, it was, this person is offering a valid halal option. Let's jump on it. If another person that was from anywhere, if a McDonald's was offering a halal option, that would have been fine. So why are we gonna, stoop to, this person is from here, this person is from there? So it was, and I think we didn't realize this in the beginning, but then we came into a political war that was going on, and we were in the middle of it. We opened in Parsippany, New Jersey, and there was a huge Afghani, Pakistani Palestinian community, which did fight us tooth and nail at the time, which was unfortunate, but I don't regret it one bit. I think I learned a lot from the commercial side of real estate, from um, building a business profile and getting the financing for it and putting it together. I mean, it was a huge learning experience. Nothing that money can buy you, for sure.
Like not to read, like it's funny. I'm listening to you. By the way, just a disclaimer: the owner of Burger I Am is Moroccan of Jewish
Of Jewish.
Moroccan is Jewish Moroccan. So he is Moroccan, but he just didn't do the right thing. But Moroccans or not Moroccans, unfortunately, he ran back to out of the country and left everything in the air. And many franchisees, we still owe they still owe us money. you know we
Yeah,
we
same.
put in, but you opened, so you were able to run your own way. But we never opened. We were just in the process. We luckily
Oh, okay.
did not get into. We were about to sign a lease at the mall and everything, Long Island, and we stopped just before, and then we caught up to it later on. They will never refund the money. And eventually, we realized what happened. There is an actual lawsuit. There's all kind of stuff going on with that. It made the news. It was one of the worst. So again, just as an advice, folks, do your due diligence on the franchisees or the franchises. And by the way, you're right. They did offer a halal version. It would have cost more than the actual non halal version, and because the halal meat is more expensive, technically, that's all there is. But they offered regular, food, but they had more of a literally a Moroccan flavor to their meals. I mean, with the eggs and everything, like what you would find in a burger joint in Morocco.
It was a great concept, for
It
sure.
was, it was, and that's what brought me. I mean, even the guy that sold me is a Moroccan guy who got us into it, and but so like I said, I mean, you never know, but franchises, and I love what you said. The reason you selected is because it was structured. Franchise does give you structure. Now there are caveats on franchises, and I've actually explored others. We've had other opportunities to work with franchises in the fitness world, for example. I mean, you're locked into contracts, you're locked into the services, you're locked into what they give you. You cannot do your own thing. So it's very, you have to accept the franchise for what it is. And, it's a commitment. It does cost you not just to buy in the franchise, is also like the cost of whatever you build.
Build
You
up.
build up, yeah, the build up and everything is gonna be there. Now you already went like again, you probably got worse than we had it because you went all the way through, and then you face the reality that you're on your own. So that was another thing. I mean, I know there are a few more left. Actually, they still have them
Yeah,
out there,
yeah.
the ones that were
And
first.
had it not been for COVID, we probably would still have been going. I mean, it wasn't bad. The business of it, the concept was really good. I think the biggest issue was COVID hit, cost of goods went really high, especially for halal meat. Um, we were one store, so we didn't have the collective power to be able to negotiate. So I think that's what mainly, was getting to us. I actually, believe it or not, I ended up selling the store to somebody else that opened. I don't know if you're familiar with Birdie's Hot Chicken. They're in Brooklyn. Yeah, so they ended up opening their store there. They used everything that we had and just kind of
The name and
changed the decoration and the name. But it went to a great operator. It's actually, he's doing really good right now. So
well, I guess he didn't get into the political mess, right? And well, that's the other thing. Like, folks,
yeah,
again, unfortunately, politics do happen, and they do touch on business. So whatever business you're in, you have to sometimes to be careful on what damages can happen if
yeah.
there is a political, like that takes place, and it affects that. And whenever it goes with, all these religious things, you're gonna have some challenges,
Yeah, and I
unfortunately.
think there's a distinction that we all have to make when we're using our boycotting power is who are we hurting? Are we hurting, in this case, they were hurting Muslim operators of Burger I Am because the other operators were fine. But the Muslim operators all had, because they thought we were all sending money to support, I don't know who, but literally we weren't even paying franchisee dues, because the Burger M never collected any franchisee dues. They just were barely just helping their franchisees get by to stand up on their feet. We weren't even there yet. And that never even happened. So I think it's very important that we do our due diligence. And the franchise itself was based in California. They didn't have the money to be able to support anybody overseas. So it was just a political mess. I think it was more hurting the Muslim operators that were trying to do the right thing.
I think I've watched something the other day that, whatever that's going on now, there's boycotts left and right. And by the way, I am not against the idea of boycott. I mean, sometimes they have a mission and they do work. But you're right, it's the idea, like, who is being really primarily hurt. I mean,
Mhm.
because someone said that, like, if you boycott a company in Morocco, I mean, the owner is Moroccan. you know,
Yeah,
but that's the thing. Now everyone that wants to invest in anything needs to know, like, is this going to be a, something that we need to boycott in the future, or we'll have
right.
a I think that's a question that you have to do now. I mean, if you're thinking about building a business, and especially if you're going to get a brand name that is worldwide, recognize it from now. Is this going to be a nuisance in the future or not? If you know that there's a potential, even a speck, where there's going to be some boycott, maybe it's time to
Anyway,
decide, hey, stay away. Again, these are lessons learned. No one can prepare you for them. Luckily, you have two people that have experienced it.
yeah,
So we're sharing our own life stories here. Now, this happened. There was no conflict at the time. I mean, there's always an ongoing conflict, especially in this pattern. But when we did it, there was nothing like live, heavy and stuff. Listen, I mean, my partner, my real business partner is Palestinian, and he I have to say, I'm going to give him credit. He told me do not do it because he did find out that the owner of Burger King did something similar overseas. But at the time, I was like, well, that was long years ago with a different brand. So we thought that this was in the US, we're protected. That's
right.
really where we've made it wrong. Because you think that you're going to have all the laws and stuff. And when we actually investigated and we got a lawyer and stuff, there's nothing we can do.
No, I mean, even the FTC got involved, and even with everything that they've done, at the end of the day, they couldn't do anything. And I just heard a couple of days ago that they settled with Oren for like $1,000 or something like that.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Uh,
So
well,
I
listen,
owe them a phone call. I know the lady that's in charge. I owe her a phone call. But we had an attorney as operating franchisees. We had an attorney. We tried everything. There's just nothing we could do. I mean, we thought we were protected by we got an SBA loan. This was investigated and approved by the SBA. So if the FTC and the SBA let this slide, I mean, he pulled one over them too. They didn't know what they were getting into. And for all intents and purposes, I think he did mean for this to work. It just became too much at some point. It was oversold. It's just like a cryptocurrency that you oversell and then it crashes because everybody wants to cash in on it, and then it just doesn't work.
well, you're
So
right. You're right. You're right. Nothing is guaranteed. I mean, and that's the thing in business. You make decisions based on the information you have. The information usually is sellable and looks good, and you will take. And by the way, I can give you another example. I mean, my wife has been in the franchise world as well on the fitness side, and some of these franchises also collapse eventually based on
yeah,
a lot of things. Sometimes some of these, especially the new franchises, what they do is they build a concept, it works for a couple of years, they make it franchise. They get a lot of people that are interested because it kind of sells the idea of, like, hey, this is a cookie cutter ready to go. Boom, you place, you go, you open the doors, you have, and we have the support. But then you find out it's not really what really was expected up front, and then you wind up struggling. I mean, a good example in her case, one of the franchisees that are similar, like, because they used to have like a collective in Jersey, and one
mhm.
of the people lost all their money, and he actually died out of
Wow.
because they lost everything they had, and this person, I guess, that affected them physically, and eventually they collapsed. That gets to that point. So folks, again, this is a worldwide show. Doesn't
Right.
matter what business you're in, you got to do your due diligence. I mean, it's a hit and miss. If you start your own, it's still going to be a tough one. You get a
Yeah.
franchise, it's still, I mean, you get a franchise that's been like maybe for a few decades, you get lucky, but those are expensive. I mean, if you have, let's call it Dunkin' Donuts, for example. Those are like, everywhere in the States. I mean, Jersey, they're like every 3 blocks
Yeah.
you can find one. it costs a lot of money to get into them. But if you had them 20 years ago, and I remember in the 90s, you can get one for almost nothing. Now, at
Yeah.
the time, I was stupid. I didn't think about it. I should have done one of those then, and I'd be like, very rich at this point, but it didn't work. But you never know. See, again, that's the thing. Every single person, every one of you watching and listening, here in Morocco, somewhere in the world, you want to, bring an opportunity to the country. And that's the other thing. Even bringing something to the country, you don't know if it's going to work, is it not going to work? How is it going to work for you? Do you have the right potential? Do you have the right, I guess, power, to back you in Morocco, for example, to bring in, a franchise to Morocco is not just you. There's going to be some powerful people that need to be part of it, in terms of getting you in the process and the approvals and stuff, because that's how it works. You can't just bring in something to compete in the country without having someone that has some, real solid, and we've tried. It's not easy. So there's all that. So Trey, thank you for sharing this. And I didn't know about this. So it's funny that we both went into the same franchise at the same time. That's what are
Yeah.
the odds, right? But
There
so
you go.
so so now COVID happened. The business didn't work well. And by the way, even to your point, COVID happened, so it kind of killed a lot of the businesses. Especially if you were not strong enough, you wouldn't have resisted it. And so
Correct.
that's done. Now you went into a different career, and it is a career that is very lucrative, also up and down depending on the seasons, depending on the time. Now believe it or not, I started in real estate in '96. I got my license in '96, and it's funny. We bought the school that we actually took our class, a year later, and this was in Brooklyn and Bay Ridge, and we've had that school until last year. It got closed. But for all these years, we had the school. I'm actually a licensed instructor as well. So I mean, I know you did your course in Jersey, but we did only New York. But so I've been in that business up and down. We've invested with stuff, but real estate business can be booming. It's always going to exist. You know, I love
Right.
what you said earlier. Is about this is probably one of the best investments and the most investment that people are going to make, and the biggest decision for a couple or a person to actually do, because it is not cheap. It's we talk about big money, and even
Right.
if the house is $50,000, it's still a big decision because this is your home. There's a lot of factors that affect. Commercial real estate is one thing, residential is another. So Tariq, can you share with our audiences in Morocco? Now, here's the thing, by the way, just for the Moroccan audiences specifically, the real estate business in the States is very different from what it is in Morocco, and I'll tell you why. It's very regulated. You just cannot decide I'm going to be a real estate agent and just sit up in a garage and have a sign, and get people to sell. I mean, that's what happens in Morocco. I mean, it's very easy to actually become a realtor. Not in the States. You got to go through a course. You have to pass a school exam. You have to do a state license. Your fingerprints on there. I mean, it is a legitimate, product. There's real law. There's a whole law, in every state, and they vary by state. Some states have similar rules and laws. Some states are different. So just to give that disclaimer to people that are in Morocco, I'm not sure how it is in parts of the world, but I'm pretty sure in for example, Europe is going to be a similar concept. But in the States, it's not an easy. But once you're in it's got a lot of opportunities. Now,
Yeah.
you, Taria, you've done a little bit of the commercial first. Now, commercial is different. And then you have the residential. Can you share with us that whole experience and why real estate specifically for you?
So for me, I'll start with this. Real estate for me is just combines everything for me. It has the sales part of it. It has the people interaction. It has the networking opportunity. It has the emotional support opportunity. It just combines everything that I love in a job or that I've ever loved in a job. It combines it in within it. Now, my experience has been very different depending on who I'm dealing with. So that really keeps it interesting. I deal with different communities. I deal with regular clients that are from the States. I deal with communities. I have a huge Egyptian community clientele. I've recently opened up more to the Moroccan community as well. Been taking on clients from the Moroccan community, and I love seeing that Moroccans are finally shaking off their rental shells and trying to get into the real estate market, which I think that that's going to make a huge difference for future generations of this community. I don't think we could emphasize enough that real estate is what builds generational wealth. I don't think Moroccans really were focusing on this point just a few years ago. I think now they're seeing more that where you live determines kind of the future of your kids as well, because if you live in a heavily dense rental community, the school advantages are not going to be the same as a suburban area where you own your house, you pay taxes, and you get a say in what goes on in the school as well. So I'm seeing that there's a little bit more collective knowledge of what this is, and how to approach it is another story. I think Moroccans are doing their best trying to figure out what's going to work best for them. But I think, and I'm sorry, I'm going into this more from a Moroccan perspective than anything else, because I think it's important to
That's good.
focus on the Moroccan community experience in all of this. I think we're still stuck in the mindset of, I want a cheap house. Where can I get it? And I think that Moroccans at some point have to understand why other communities are focusing more on, I want good schools. Where can I find them? I want good value of my house or good equity in the long run. Where can I find it? Yes, you're going to be paying more, but in the long run, you're going to be making more. And this is where it's challenging for me right now. It's just changing the mindset of our Moroccan community when it comes to real estate. From the interaction with the realtors, this is not transactional. This is not a transactional experience at all. It's not somebody that you find that's going to buy you a house and that's going to move on. That's not going to work in the long run. You need somebody that's going to give you the emotional support and balance you with the financial aspects of things. You need somebody that's going to help you find the best fit for you in terms of location, in terms of schools, in terms of your family needs. And I think Moroccans are still more focused on the transactional part. I can tell you that my general experience with the Moroccan community has been, give me the information and then I'm going to go to another realtor to close the transaction. That's been the experience so far. And it's just, it doesn't serve them in the long run, because not just myself, but other realtors, when they see who the person is and where they're from, they're immediately thinking, I need to sign a contract with this person because they're going to use me and go find somebody else to close the transaction. So you're going to end up limiting your pool of people that can help you, whether it be lenders or realtors. So I think we need to change the collective mindset of Moroccans on how to approach the buy-in process of the transaction or the selling process. You need to do your due diligence, find out who you're dealing with, find out who that realtor is, find out which areas they serve. Because some people insisted, I went out of my way to different areas that I don't service. And I'm trying to explain to them that that's not gonna help you. You need somebody that is well-versed in that location specifically. I serve the North Jersey market. Me going with you to South Jersey, as much as I can do to help you, you're going to be at a disadvantage. You need somebody that knows every inch of the area that you're trying to buy into. But I think more so, we need to change the mindset of, let me just go to an area that is cheap, because cheap is for a reason. Why is it cheap? Is it cheap because of the surrounding area? Is it cheap because inaccessibility? Is it cheap because value is very low? What if you decide to sell in 5 or 10 years? Then are you going to make your money back? Are you going to benefit? Do you just want to buy it today for 100,000 and sell it tomorrow for 80 because you have to? Or is it somewhere where you can build wealth for your kids, which is what we're seeing today? People that have inherited homes in the last 10 years are now banking, and that's how they're making their kids wealth for the future. So sorry,
That's
I know I went way
no,
out,
no,
but
no, no. I love it. I love it actually, and it's you bring in a lot of good points and great points as a matter of fact. First of all, real estate is probably the most value that someone can have. I mean, we hear about all kind of other investments. The real estate has always been the historic investment that does pin out. Now, providing you make the right choices, the right communities, the right neighborhoods and stuff. And now again, we're talking around the world. Everybody, this can benefit from this discussion. But I want to just to the point of the Moroccans. I mean, again, this is the same in Morocco, for example. If you buy a property in a neighborhood, for example, I don't know where you're from, Touria in Morocco.
Gaza.
So, Kaza, so imagine if you bought a house, I don't know, in what do you call that? One of the like India, California, one of those affluent neighborhoods, if you want to call them, right? It's the same concept, right? You bought it 20 years, 30 years ago. The land was very, compared to now, super cheap. Now you can bank really some good cash in that property. Your property is worth millions. Well, same thing here, and that's value to value, land, and progression of the land, value. But I think what you stated very powerfully is, people in at least in the States, they seek blue ribbon school systems. They seek the neighborhood safety. They seek the is this neighborhood going up or going down? Is there drugs? Is there this? Is there that? Is there, you know, whenever I love what you said, if the value is so cheap, why is it cheap? Maybe the neighborhood is not safe. Maybe, it's drug invested. Maybe the schools, they're not good. Maybe, yeah, you go to suburbia, you're in the middle of nowhere, but you're paying 20,000, 15, $16,000 worth of taxes. You have at least 60% of that going to the school system, and you can go and claim and make noise. You don't have that in other places. Again, if you have kids, that's where it is. I mean, listen, you can be in the rental mentality, and rental, to a degree now is worse. I mean, I
Yeah.
know, for example, you can get a 2 bedroom. In New York, we get it. I mean, one studio is like now $6,000, $7,000. I don't know. I forgot the numbers are just going crazy now. Brooklyn, you can't even get a 2 bedroom, for less than $3,000, $4,000, I think, in the right neighborhood. Now, you probably can, again, you can go cheaper, but then are you safe at night? When you come in, do you have to put barriers and barricade stuff in your windows and your doors to get
Yeah.
in? I mean, are you in jail? No. I mean, obviously barricades and bars are for jail, right? Cells. But if you have that, that's a problem, right? Do you want to be there? No. Probably your school system is not going to be that good. So those are decisions to make. Now, you're buying a home, as they say, it's a home, not a house. It's a home. You're buying the experience of family. You're buying, where you're gonna bring your kids. You want to have that playground. You want to have that the ability to do things. You have safety. You have police patrols and things like that. So these are things, and you want a school that has a good academic level and things like that. And I love what you said. This is, by the way, not just in real estate. Unfortunately, we as a community, we need to learn to support each other more and more and more. And I think that's the thing. It's not about like talk to Taria, but I go talk to James later on. If I talk to Touria, Turia's doing the work. I mean, she's just as good as anybody else. If she's licensed, that means she's qualified to do this job. Now, I mean, maybe Touria didn't do a good job, showing me the stuff. That's also not true, because it depends what you tell Touria, right? I'm giving your name as an example, but let's think about it this way. If you want to buy a house, you also need to know what you want. you can't give people, I just want a house, in this range. You got to give them like certain specifics. What is it you want in the house? How big is the house? What area that you want. I love what you said. You work in the north of Jersey, completely different demographics, completely different neighborhoods, areas, and also price range from if you go further south in the state, it's going to be cheaper. But now you're like an hour away, 2 hours from any metropolitan area, unless you want to go to Philly, or that's another story. But so you have to know where you're doing. Is your job close by? Is your job not? All these things are decisions that you have to be aware. But we need to learn to do that. And I love what you said, that finally we're seeing more and more Moroccans acquiring properties and stuff, as opposed to just renting. Now let's face it, folks. Rent is zero. It's all money lost. You put it out there, and it's never going to give back to you. You don't have tax credits, you have nothing. If you do real estate, well, you have equity in the house, whatever you put down is there, and whatever value in the property. If you bought a house in Brooklyn, for example, back in the days, now you're in a million, you're a million mark, 2 million mark. You can cash in, talking about generational wealth. Your kids are going to be happy. A lot of
The
people,
majority of our clients are people that have sold in Brooklyn or Queens. They bought for 300, they're at 1.4, 1.5 million now. So they're coming here to get bigger properties and to use
gosh,
the cash for their kids.
exactly. Cash. I mean, they boom. They just you come in. Hey, no banking needed. We can close in 10 days. Done deal or less. I mean, just get the title, get all the stuff done, and you're done. I mean, it makes a difference. But that's the thing. It's long vision, long term, and real estate can move quickly, folks. Listen, I'm not. True story. I used to have properties in New York, and I made a mistake of selling them sooner than later. Now we sold before the 2008 mark, which was okay, but had we kept them, we would have gained a lot more for those properties that we had. But again, for me, it was other reasons. We didn't want to stay in the riba stuff or like the usury or interest business, and so we kind of did all that. But so there was different decisions why we did it. But again, now of course you're gonna get into that fine line, riba versus not riba and things like that. We're not gonna do a
But
religious.
there's options now. There's
Yeah.
there's many, many options.
And by the way, the bank industries, they have actually Islamic financing if you want that.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
there is that. So there's a lot of and by the way, I did that too. I mean, we use some Islamic financing, but I'm telling you, it's a very unique approach. So I love what you said, Tori, about like the community is now. And by the way, this is not a general term. I mean, there is a percentage of the community that's been around the states long enough that they've been property owners and investors and things like that. But it's not the majority. It's not the bigger percentage when
Correct.
you compare it to, for example, the Chinese community, the Italian community, the other communities, right? They're big with properties and real estate. I mean, that's what they do. They buy homes. And by the way, it's the same thing. I mean, if you think about renting a house right now, you're going to need 2 months or 3 months, the down payment, the first month and the last month at least, right? And then if you're using an agent, you're probably paying the agent. So about,
Mhm.
that's like, if it's 4,000 or 5,000, you're looking at 20,000. You get an FHA loan, like first time home buyer, you're probably going to be, in the same range of down payment. And now you have your own home, right? And again, I'm just giving some, numbers that are low, but it doesn't matter what the property range, even if it's $500,000, whatever. And although that's difficult to find these days in the right places because everything is going up. But the idea is that you're still ahead of the game. And by the way, if you're gonna rent a place for 2 or 3 bedrooms for $4 or $5,000, might as well get a house for less than that. At least you have your credits, you have your equity. That money is not lost. You can sell it and get money back. You can cash money in it. There's many things you can do. It's different, and it's a different way to do this. And by the way, I love what you said. It is an emotional decision. It is fulfilling because you do help people really build homes. I mean, one of the things it's really when you're selling homes and you see how people you can visualize with them the whole concept, where the kids are going to play and things like that. It's a warm feeling, right? And it's just a good business to be in to help people. There is plenty of growth in it as a business itself. I mean, you can become your own broker, you can have your own agents. There's a lot of things to do. But thank you for by the way, a great opportunity to network. That's how we met.
Yeah, there you go.
So you never know. You meet people. There's
Yeah.
different things. And by the way, I want to commend you because you're one of the few that I know Moroccans actually who are out there in events and doing the work. Not everybody. I mean, I know a few that are out there tabletop events, festivals, and things like that, and networking opportunities and stuff. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. You make it happen. It's part of the culture. It's been happening and it's happening, and it makes and you can make good money. I mean, as a realtor, there's whether you're a seller agent or a buyer's agent, you're gonna make some percentage of the commissions of that, and the bigger the properties, the bigger the chunk is. Now, it has to be consistent, right? Touria, the business is not like hit and miss. You're gonna be like, you know, uh, at least I'm gonna ask you what is the name of the game for you? I mean, I have my own way of looking at it, but for you to our audiences, what would be the best way as a realtor to thrive?
Well, I think, um, uh, see, I think it depends on the person because for me, I can't take on 10, 15 clients at a time and think to myself that I did right by those clients. So you could take 10, 15 clients at a time and just kind of juggle them around and be closing transactions, and that's fine. But for me, I like to focus on certain amount of clients that I can service properly. Because let's face it, every client thinks you're only working with them. They're going to expect you to show them houses every day. They're going to send you a property. Say, can I see this tonight? So it's just really, for me, I'm a mom. I have a family to take care of. So it's important for me to set the limits and just say, this is how much I can do every month. And that's that. But I mean, you can do whatever you want with the business. If you don't have a lot of obligations and you could potentially be out all day, every day, that's fine. But half of the time, half of the business is being out there, networking, highlighting yourself, like you said, putting yourself out there as the community expert on matters. Um, and this generally works with almost all communities. I will say the Moroccan community is a little bit of an exception, but with all communities, it's generally, if you're out in their site and you're out there putting yourself out there, you're going to get the reward. It's mainly a referral business. 90% of our business is referrals. You have somebody that bought a few years ago, and I'm already there now, where people that closed on their houses back in 2020 or 2021 are now selling because they see the potential in selling and just moving a little bit out of the area. So it's just a word of mouth and referral business.
Again, sales is referral word,
Yeah.
and there's nothing better than word of mouth. And by the way, I love what you said. But here's the thing: you are an expert in this area. As a matter of fact, I mean, I've been in the States long enough. I've known a lot of people in the community, and and in the real estate world. I had a school for 20 plus years. We had thousands and thousands of realtors coming through our doors for their continuing education, and I have not met maybe one Moroccan, I think, in the whole time. And you are the second one that I think that I know of a realtor background that is actually active. I mean, I was in New York, now in Jersey. I mean, the only one I know. But that just
Right.
shows that there's not a lot of us doing this. But for those that are doing it, I mean, they are the experts. They're doing the business. They're working with all other communities. We should take advantage of our, people that can help us get in.
Right.
Yeah, Taria's not going to lie to you. I mean, and this business is not about lying. It's about giving you the right value, the right stuff. As long as you ask for the right things and you give them the description of what you want, the
Yeah.
realtor can do that for you. And it's not about, by the way, do not want to see 10,000 houses. You want to be zoned in into like, what do you want? What exactly the neighborhoods, the price range. And then so the realtor can actually really hone in on those
Help
properties.
you.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
if you start, here's the thing, guys. It's like a meal. If you have 20,000, foods in front of you, you're gonna get lost. So what are you gonna eat?
Mhm.
You're probably gonna get
We're
full.
all gonna get lost.
Exactly. But if you concise your decision on like what I want, what the neighborhoods, the size of the house, whatever the description you want a pool, you want this, you want that, you want by the school, you want by transportation, then it gives the true dynamics that the realtor is going to give you, and they're going to do a better job helping you. But if you every day like, oh well, how about if we can add something, or how if you keep doing this, and as you said, realtors also are busy people. They have other people. You're not the only one, and that's the other thing. And by the way, I think it's our culture. Once we hire someone, we think that person, we own them,
Yeah.
and they're basically ours, and a speed dial. It doesn't work that way, folks. I mean, yes, the customer relationship is always there. And remember something, there's different levels of real estate. Like you can be as I mentioned, seller's agent, which basically you represent the seller. The property is yours. You list that property, and you basically selling for someone their property and share in the market. And the other way is you are a buyers, you'll get hired by someone who's looking for a house, and then you are selling what's in the market. And that's another one to look at it. And that's actually another dynamic. Either one of those, it's a lot of work. You want to be showing homes, but you want to show the correct homes in the right time. Typically, showings are in the afternoons. People come from work; they want to do that. Weekends is busy. I know I take your time, and you gotta go. But so there's a lot of stuff there. So quickly, Touria, thank you first of all for sharing all that. Now,
Of course. Thank
how's
you
the
for
market?
having
No, no, how's the market right now? Before we
It's
we
insane. Insane.
Is it good?
It's
Is it bad? Can we
it's
can we? What advice
I
would you give people?
see, here's the thing. The market today is still as competitive as it was in 2021 when the rates were really low. Surprisingly, even with the rates being high, we're still going 50, 60, 70,000 over asking just to get the property, waiving some part of appraisal, some part of inspection, just to get the deals through. I think the mentality of I want to get a good deal is not here. You have to leave that check to the door, because today, if you can get a property in your price range, if you're looking in the 500s, look at houses in the 450, because you're not going to get $500,000 house for 500,000. It's impossible. So the market is hot for sellers. It's still a seller's market. Buyers just have to, to be open-minded and to kind of be realistic with their budget and their expectations, because that's the biggest challenge right now. If you have a budget for a Mercedes, you're going to get a Mercedes. If you have a budget for, not to be disrespectful to Kias, but if you have a budget to a Kia, you cannot expect to buy a Mercedes. It's just not going to work. You have to be realistic with yourself, with your budget, and with your expectations. That's the biggest thing.
Qualifications, have they been difficult now more than ever? Because
No, it's fine. I think it's very realistic. Very, very realistic.
I think banks are the same. They approve you based on your income, your credit score, the usual, right?
Correct. Yes.
There's
I think the qualifications for lending are just as realistic as they've been the last few years. No changes there.
just a quick advice to our Moroccan community: if you are interested in purchasing, you want to prepare your credit, you want to prepare your finances to be at least, ready. Because again, you want to buy the house, you're gonna have the tools. Because if you're not pre-qualified, or at least you're not ready to be pre-qualified, you're just gonna struggle, and you don't want to take. And a lot of realtors will not even make the attempt to take you around if you're not pre-qualified, because you're not going to get into the place. So, what are some of the recommendations you want to tell people just to close this chapter as far as the real estate piece, or the pre-qualifying?
So I think the biggest thing is planning ahead. If you are a business owner, you need at least 2 years worth of financials, of tax filing, to be able to buy a house. So if you are a contractor or a business owner, 1099, you start planning ahead, because the banks will not give you a loan if you don't have at least 2 years worth of history. If you are on a W-2, then just start watching your credit. Don't overextend it. Pay down your credit cards. Make sure you're at a good ratio. I think 30% is what most banks are going to be looking for. Income to debt ratio is very important. So familiarize yourself with these terms. Start doing some research. Don't apply for anything that you think you're not going to get, because those ding your credits and stay on for a little while. And then banks start to look at decline rates, and that's not going to help you. If you are doing mostly cash business, then talk to an accountant. You're going to have to start figuring out how to integrate that cash into your income. And I think this is the biggest challenge for most community members. It's a lot of people are cash earners, and it doesn't show on their income. And then when they go to buy, it becomes very challenging. So I think that's the biggest thing right now.
That's a lot of advice, and again, I think you covered it all. So, well, listen, Touria, I know you have to go. It's busy season. There's a lot of work to be done, and you have to be out in the community. But it was a terrific time. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
True pleasure, and we've covered a lot. So thank you so much. And again, folks, I mean, you had Touria, a realtor. She's an expert in what she does. Plenty of opportunity there, plenty of learning from her. So to, connect with her, I'll have information. So if you're looking to purchase in Jersey, North Jersey specifically, we have someone that can help you. If you're in the world, in Morocco, whatever, and you're trying to come here and have an idea, maybe. But if not, you've learned quite a few things about Touria's life and how she became who she is today, and all the challenges and all the successes that she had. And hopefully you can learn from her lessons and our lessons and all our guests. So that being said, I'm American Age. Thank you for watching Talented Morocco Worldwide. We'll be talking soon. New day, new show, new guest. Bye for now.
Thank you.